This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
Today's show is brought to you by Audible. Go to audible.animanicast.com to not only pick up 1, but 2 free audiobooks for free with your Audible trial. Here's a hint of one of the books you should probably get. Voice lessons. Yes, audible.animanicast.com. Enjoy 2 free audiobook downloads. Just sign up at audible.animanicast.com. And welcome everybody to a special episode of the Animanicast.
Hey you guys, it's Rob Paulsen here. I am so thrilled that we have the Animanicast to continue to find a way to help me to get a frickin' job. Thank you for listening. Bye!
And welcome once again, everybody, to the Animanicast. This is the only podcast out there that's dedicated to the animated television series, Animaniacs. And here we discuss each episode by episode, one by one. In fact, we already did it. We actually are talking about Pinky the Brain, Freakazoid, and Tiny Toon Adventures as well. We talk about all the cultural references and gags and stuff like that. But today, we're not talking about that. We're talking about a certain book that's going to be coming out pretty soon. An Animaniacs comic book. Ooh. I am Joey, and joining me once again is our co-hosts. In California, it's my brother Nathan.
Burp, spit. There's a camel.
And across the country in Georgia, it's Kelly.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. And we got Kelly in today for a comic book discussion.
Woo, tricked her.
We tricked her.
They said they were going to talk about a book, so I was like, I'll be there.
Technically, we're talking about 2 books.
Yeah.
That's true.
That is true. Let's go over. We're going to be talking about a book that's going to be coming out very soon. And I know a lot of our audience members are very excited about this book. This is Voice Lessons by Rob Paulsen. This is his, I guess is it a memoir or an autobiography or somewhere in the middle? I don't know.
Autobiography. But also memoir. I don't know. It's going to be somewhere in the middle.
It's something like that. Well, anyway,
that's a good question.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to good questions. Anyway, well, we were lucky enough to get review copies. Kelly was able to sweet talk us all into getting review copies. So thank you, Kelly.
I'm the best.
You are.
I love you guys.
Yay.
But the book does not come out until October 8th. So we were lucky to get our review copies, and I'll read them. And we're going to be talking about kind of basically give a quick kind of review, kind of give our impressions of the book, some of our favorite moments, and we're going to try not to spoil anything, because of course, you all want to go out there and actually buy this book in October, and that's really what you should do. There's also, I know, an audiobook going to be coming out as well.
That's what I'm excited for.
Yeah, I don't think there's any release date on that, but I know that Rob was just recording it a couple weeks ago, so I don't know, maybe this holiday season, but that might be kind of pushing it, but whatever, it's coming out soon. But yeah, let me just ask you guys, I guess, in a few words, what were your general thoughts about this book? Nathan, let's start with you.
I thought it was a fun read, and I just couldn't put it down, I guess.
Okay.
Because I had to read it before the show.
Exactly. You could not. You had a deadline, and you had to read it. Kelly, what about you?
It was a very, very interesting read. But most importantly, it had a lot about Steven Spielberg in it.
There you go. Yes. So, this book covers everything from Rob Paulsen's childhood and his teenage years to, starting off with acting and eventually going off to California, how he got into voice acting. And then, it even has these little side stories where he's talking about in the future. It kind of goes back and forth with the the present and the past. So not to get too much into spoilery things in this in our talk, but in chapter 1, he essentially confirms that a few years ago they did have a meeting with Sam Register and some of the other executives over at Warner Brothers, and they all talked about how there was going to be a reboot of Animaniacs. So they did know about it. Now, they don't confirm.
He doesn't say whether he's involved with the reboot necessarily, but he does allude to it a lot.
He basically, there's this whole, bit of like, oh, Steven wants Steven wants Animaniacs to come back, and then talking about it, and then it kind of transitions into, oh wait, you haven't told him about you have cancer. And of course, that's what a large portion of this book is about. It's not just about acting. It's not just about his trip to California, but it's about his trip through finding out he had cancer and his treatment and what life is like today. Because it's not like it's, you kind of think like, oh, cancer is over and now you're completely back to normal. And that isn't really the case, with him. So he's still kind of in a recovery, I would say, from those cancer treatments. So let's go ahead and talk about, I guess, just some moments in general that you guys were highlights for you, things that you really appreciated in this book. Nathan, what are some things that you really liked about this book?
I liked hearing about him coming to California because I went to California, and I just like hearing what it took for him to make it in the acting world, whether he made it or not. I don't want to say whether he...
No spoilers.
No spoilers. Whether he was...
Well, that's especially nice. I mean, especially for you going off to California with your wife, who's, an aspiring actress to be. I mean, she's been, of course, she's been in a few movies and stuff, right? Or TV shows as, background actress.
Yeah, I was like, starring roles.
Starring roles as extra number 57. But it's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of rejection and a lot of no phone calls, and it's a tough business.
And he talks about, you need to be part of the SAG to work for SAG, but also you can't work for SAG unless you can't get SAG unless you work for SAG, and you can't work for SAG unless you have SAG. So just how do you get it? So he talks about that a lot. So it's interesting.
Kelly, what about you?
Well, one of the my favorite parts was when he was talking about they got a call to go and visit Steven at his office, and he makes here's a quote from the book: "We were journeyman actors getting the Hollywood equivalent of a papal audience," which of course makes me think of Hooked on a Ceiling, His Eminence. But he's talking about reaching meeting Spielberg, and that there are very few people who have reached that level of success and have his class. He serves as a wonderful example of how to behave if you're fortunate enough to cultivate some sort of power and celebrity. And he says that, I'll go to bat for Steven Spielberg because he's convinced that his interest is genuine and he makes it about you, not him. And I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah.
And it sounds just like I imagine Steven Spielberg to be, like, this great, wonderful person. I don't believe he's perfect, honestly, but he does have a really good reputation. And, you do hear most, wealthy movie executive types can be kind of jerks, but, he, other than Shia LaBeouf, hashtag not still mad. Nobody really says anything bad about him.
Hashtag LaBeoufed. That'll be
Boom.
Listen to a couple episodes ago. Well, yeah, I always like that part, right, when he's talking about meeting Spielberg. I think for the first time, and Spielberg walks in and sees Tress MacNeille, and he goes, "Hi, Tress," and she goes, "Hi, Steven." And he's like, "Oh, great." She knows she's on a first name basis with Steven Spielberg.
Well, he's so happy to be in a room with someone that's on a first name basis with Steven.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, wow.
But also this really goes to, I think, what's highlighted in here. And it's not that Rob is showing off or anything, but you really get the sense that we have segments on the show once a year. It seems like every time around his birthday about Rob Paulsen being one of the nicest people on earth. And there's these segments where I don't want to spoil the story because it really is one of the most heartfelt things I've ever heard. But he talks back to his original run with Ninja Turtles and having a Ninja Turtle jacket that he gives to this young boy who is having health issues, and him saying like, well, I'm going to give this to you and it's going to give you turtle power. And the kid having this, increased optimism and feeling that he could do anything, even like walk and everything because of this jacket. And he's like, trying to temper his expectations and everything. And it was, I don't know. I just really got the sense that Rob just, there's an optimism with Rob Paulsen. There's just overall positivity with Rob that comes through in everything that he does. But also there is the part that, towards, especially when there's a section where the calls just aren't coming in. He's gotten to a certain point in his career and all of a sudden the phone's not ringing anymore and bills start to pile up, and he's going, how am I going to afford all this? And he just left. he just thought of himself as a failure, and no amount of positivity or optimism was going to help lift him out of that thing. So it's not all about like, look at me, I'm Rob Paulsen and I'm the most positive person in the world. It's real. There's moments where he felt defeated, but at the same time, you see how he gets out of that, and became even a stronger person, because of those things. So, yeah. I read.
It's really inspirational. I mean, it's motivational.
Absolutely. That's one of the main things I got from this book. It's just a beautiful book that if you read it, you feel good. And at the end of it, I mean, there's a whole redacted chapter at the end. Nathan and I. Actually,
the Pinky in the Brain.
Yeah, Nathan and I read the redacted chapter section a few weeks ago when we were doing our Animaniacs reboot rundown, which is just Pinky in the Brain talking about how the chapter's missing and why is that. And one can only guess that it must be talking about, I'm assuming, stepping into the recording booth once again to record Yakko and Pinky and what that felt like, perhaps. That's just my guess.
There's also times where just he's talking to Pinky in general, where that's why I would want the audiobook, just to hear him talking to himself.
That's right.
Pinky.
There's these interstitial moments where he's like having conversations between him and his characters, or his characters are talking to one another, and it's just like a script of and then there's a great epilogue with him and Dr. Scratch and Sniff. And so the audiobook is going to be outstanding. I do want to get the actual physical book, though, obviously, in October, because I want to find out what that missing chapter is. Number one, what was taken out and why? And of course, we just had a pre-publication copy, so there's always chances that chapters might be changed or changed up a bit here or there.
Yeah, there could be typos or things. There was one part where I was like, wait, was that supposed to be a he and not an I or something?
Oh, we better write them real quick before it goes to publication just to make sure.
I'm sure. I was like, either way it works. But I couldn't tell. Like, he was talking about either himself or Randy Rogel. And I was like, wait, who said this quote?
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, didn't you get the sense that, his admiration for Randy Rogel is so high in this book? I mean, the people that he talks about working with Randy and just him being just a real musical genius, and how, and because part of Rob's background in this was singing, and I never knew that before,
he started off as a singer, which I didn't know that either, so.
I just figured Rob was like, okay, just get into drama and do that, but he started off as kind of like kind of a rock singer with tight jeans. Talks about wearing tight jeans and then doing kind of like I don't know, it was like kind of a Christian community theater kind of touring group. Kind of reminds me of like our brother Clay, who does the emergency circus kind of thing, where it sounded like where you kind of get into a bus and you travel the country and go to schools and do skits and stuff for kids. But yeah, it was, I don't know. What are some other things? Anything else that you guys really thought were, of note in this book? Because there's obviously a lot.
Mark Hamill talks about the book at the beginning, so that was cool.
Why don't you read what did Mark Hamill say? What did Luke Skywalker have to say about his book?
Yeah, because we can always just like read because like these are non-spoilers kind of things. All right, so. As one of the most gifted, prolific, and beloved actors in animation, it's no surprise that Rob Paulsen's book is fascinating, hugely entertaining, and laugh-out-loud funny. What I wasn't expecting was his candid, inspirational, and ultimately life-affirming account of facing devastating medical issues with such optimism, courage, and determination. I only regret I'm too old to play him in the inevitable movie version. Mark Hamill.
Yeah, and that's the thing. What can we say? It's a story about acting. It's a story about positivity. And it's a story about survival. And you really feel like it's a feel-good story at the end of it, right? So,
yes.
Yeah.
Well, should we go ahead and give this book a water tower rating? Let's do it. Let's do it. Okay, so how many water towers out of 5 would you give Rob Paulsen's book? Let's go with Kelly. What would you say?
I will give it 5 water towers. It was an easy read, meaning that it really was difficult to put down. And I'd be like, oh, I'm only going to read a few minutes in between other projects I was working on, but I'd find myself just going page after page because I didn't want to stop reading. And it was a great story, one of those Hollywood success story kind of things. Midwest boy moves out to Hollywood sort of story, and then his illness and overcoming that, and very inspirational. And of course, yes, Spielberg, lots of Spielberg, but also a lot of information about the voice industry and relationships he had with other voice actors, and sort of a behind the scenes look at that as well. So it was a quick read. I mean, not that long of a book, but there was a lot of information in it.
Yeah, you really can get through this book, and honestly, you could probably, if you're a really good reader, you could easily get through it, I think, in a night. If you're one of those fast readers. But even if you're not, it's just going to take reading a chapter can just take an hour or so, and there's only like 10 chapters or so. No, I take that back. I'm taking back everything.
Like 15.
Yeah, 15. But either way, you're going to get through it pretty fast. Nathan, let's go with you.
I guess, I don't know. I'll do 4.5 because there's no the last chapter was too short, which is Pinky in the Brain. Just so I don't want to give it pure 5 stars.
Well, I'm going to give it 5. And I hear you, Nathan. I almost like was going, but I can't fault it for having that missing chapter.
I can.
You can. And I will tell you definitely, I can't wait for the audiobook, because if this is a 5 out of 5, alone, but I mean, the audiobook is going to be fantastic as well. And just hearing the words, the wisdom of Rob Paulsen being spoken. And he even posted, I think, either on his Facebook page or Instagram page, a clip of him in the recording booth recently, recording some of his lines. So, in fact, let's go ahead and play a clip of that right now.
This book is dedicated to the human spirit. Now, it sounds a bit pretentious for a cartoon voice guy story, but the examples of utter courage in the everyday heroes cited herein have been and continue to be a source of inspiration, kindness, hope, and faith for me. Family, friends, and fans. We all fit those categories, and we truly are all in this together, kids. So If my story inspires positive action, elicits joy, gives the reader strength, well, that, I believe, is what we're all here to do for each other. Narf. Thank you, Perry, Ash, Pooshie, and Taylor, for making me a lottery winner. Heart. Laughter's the best medicine. The cool thing is you can't OD, and the refills are free.
So that right there was from Rob Paulsen's Facebook page.
Oh.
Beep 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 rap boop 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 boop. This just in. This is your Animanicast announcer, and I'm back to let everyone know that voice lessons will be in fact out on October 8th. You can get your copy for free by going to audible.animanicast.com. Voice lessons, the audiobook, October 8th. Back to the studio.
I ran into Rob Paulsen right before Animaniacs in concert in San Diego when we were getting together. It was the most wild thing. And here's the funny thing. I'm like going out. I'm like, oh, I better park my car and I'm going to take a picture of the marquee. So I back up and I take a picture of the marquee and it says Animaniacs in concert. I'm like, oh, great. I'm going to put that on Instagram. And then I turn around and here's this guy and I'm like, Rob? And he's like, hey. So... And I got to tell him because I literally had just just finished the book just that day, so I got to thank him for writing the book and how it was just an amazing book, and so he really appreciated it, and you could tell like he was just genuinely thankful for his fans. That's it's Rob Paulsen, he's great. And here's a little hint for everybody out there. If you want to see me right before I saw Rob, go to Rob Paulsen's Instagram account and check out that when he's videotaping the marquee, you can actually see me walking around in the distance, looking at my phone as I'm posting my picture, about to post my picture to Instagram.
Funny. So
I know.
funny.
It was so funny. I was checking out his page. I'm like, hey, wait, that's me walking right over there. So anyway. Well, so go ahead and get it. And by the way, you can get your own copy of this fantastic book by going to amazon.animanicast.com. That's our Animanicast Amazon store. And every purchase made through that link, whether it's pre-purchasing this book or purchasing it, or really anything else that you get on Amazon through that link, helps out the Animanicast, just a few pennies here and there. So
Yeah.
So check it out and pre-order your copy today. And hey, we appreciate the book and the support and whatever. Let's go and move on to the second part.
Hey, Dad, this is Pinky, and you're listening to Animanicast. You know why? Because you're going to take over the world.
Narf.
So, second part of today's show is a comic book review. So, we are going to be talking about I want to say episode. It's a comic. What are we on? Issue 17 now?
That's right.
That's right.
17.
Issue 17. So, this features 3 sections. Number 1, of course, it has Minerva Mink right on the cover with the Beast from Beauty and the Beast, sort of. He kind of looks like he has a receding hairline or something like that. Something else is going on with Beast. But she's saying, ew, I'd rather kiss a hunchback. So obviously around this time, Hunchback of Notre Dame was coming out. But so we know Minerva's coming in this comic. And from what I've been told, I believe she makes quite a few more appearances in the comic book as well. So, yeah. The segments in this are Beauty or the Beast, featuring the Warners at a beauty contest. Minerva Drama, featuring Newt and Minerva Mink. And then Slappy Squirrel comes back once again with a story called No Substitute for Laughter. And I don't know, what would you say? Let's go to Nathan first. What would you say about this comic book in a few words, Nathan?
It's beautiful, I guess. I don't know. That's a common theme in this, I guess.
Sure, maybe not the last one, but
Yeah, the last one has nothing.
yeah. Well, Kelly, what about you?
I remember I used to own it.
What, you used to
This
own
comic?
this comic?
Oh yeah, I used to go and buy all my Star Wars comics at the comic shop and order through the previews. So I had a box at the comic shop, and when the Animaniacs comics came out, I'd get them every month. And I don't know how many, the first 20, 25 issues or something. So maybe first 2 years. And
Wow.
but I found I wasn't reading them. I was getting a lot of, like, I'd get Buffy, Xena, Star Wars, and I'd mostly read the Star Wars, but I realized the other ones, along with magazines I was reading and stuff, were just, things were piling up. And I went through and culled most of my comics years ago because I had so many, and they're not easy to store, and they're just heavy to move from one place to another. So I had tons of them, so I recognized the covers.
So you don't have your Animaniacs comics anymore?
I may have like the first one somewhere. I go back through my collection, but no, I know I don't have all of them.
That's too bad. I actually saw one of them is actually worth a lot of money, and I forget the number, but it's, I think, a Men in Black or X-Files version of it.
Oh, okay.
And it is worth, at least according to one seller on eBay, which who knows if this person's actually, people sell stuff for whatever on eBay, but he's selling it for thousands of dollars.
Well, that's why you have to look at the sold listings and not look what people are asking for, but what people are paying.
Well, the reason that he's selling it for, or he or she, who knows? I'm going to say he, because guys are like jerks like that. But anyway, but the reason this seller is selling it for thousands of dollars, I believe, is because the artist behind that X-Files or Men in Black comic with Animaniacs is like one of the artists from Walking Dead worked on that comic. And so it might have, I don't know, it might have even been his first comic. So I don't know the artist's name off the top of my head, but he was involved with Walking Dead. So you know how that happens, how that increases the value of even the most obscure comics sometimes. I was looking at it like an old comic issue of the Batman Adventures or something. It was one.
I'm looking at the cover of it.
Yeah,
it looks familiar.
It's a weird cover. It looks like they're half bugs or something like that. It's a crazy one.
Owned it. Interesting.
Yeah,
the Y files is what they.
Yeah, the Y files. Yeah. Well, anyway, so there you go. That's that. You never know when a comic book's going to be worth a lot.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's so funny. I'm sorry. When you said X-Files, I was like, I wonder if the cover artist was Mirren Kim. And when I looked at the cover, I'm like, that looks like a Mirren Kim artwork. And I'm reading that it is. And I know her artwork because she did this really amazing picture for the Topps Star Wars Galaxy trading card series of Luke with the burned homestead in the background and the smoking corpses of his aunt and uncle.
Jeez. Yeah, so she's into the grotesque stuff, I guess, huh?
Yeah, she has a very dark, kind of surrealistic quality.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I found it, darkly beautiful, and I was like, I'm looking at her, and I'm remembering her name because I loved that card.
Yeah,
and I had some of the X-Files comics. Kevin J. Anderson wrote some of the X-Files stories for the comics too. So, and I do still have those. And she did the cover art, I think, for I think a lot of the X-Files stuff.
Well, there you go. So
maybe, I mean, if I still have any of in my collection, I bet I hung on to that one.
Well, there you go.
So
you might have something worth some money. There you go.
Maybe.
You never know. Well, anyway, let's go ahead and talk about this one right here. Let's go ahead and start off with Beauty or the Beast. And Beauty or the Beast, I think the writing, usually had the writers right here at the beginning, but they wrote them at the very end of this comic. So the writer was, I was like, where's the writers? Oh, they're at the end of the issue. Writer was Mark McCain. Penciler was James Silvani. The inker was Scott McCrae. Letterer was Bob Panaha. Colorist was Dave Tanguay. And Nathan, why don't you tell us what happens here in Beauty or the Beast?
All right. Well, we have Miss Small Town America Beauty Contest, and the Warners are coming out of a limo. It turns out that Mr. Plotz gave them an invitation to judge the Miss Small Town Beauty Contest, which they're very happy to do. So they're walking in. They even see some of the small town beauty, and they get to say hello, nurse. Although her teeth are kind of messed up. So as they're walking in, they see the host, and they take off his toupee. They're kind of hassling him, like, "Oh, we can make you much more beautiful, or something," you know. Anyways, they take out his false teeth and his cummerbund. I don't know what that's called. I don't know. And as he's coming out, his pants are down. He's singing "There She Is, Miss Small Town America." And apparently he's singing terribly, so they hit him with a mallet, and now Yakko is going to be the host, and I guess they're no longer judging the thing as they said they were.
Well, hosting is more fun than judging. You get to talk more.
Could be more interesting for us readers too, or whatever. So they get to decide what the contests are now. So the first one's going to be nightgown and curler contest, where they come out in their nightgown and curlers, and now Dot is also a contestant. So, and Wacko is also sometimes a contestant, I think. So it's just interesting. And in this first one, though, Wacko is the makeup artist or curler artist. I don't know. And he actually does all the women, and the winner is Tallahassee, because she has Doppler radar curlers, and she also has a screen that tracks hurricanes approaching her belly button.
Yes,
up to 200 miles away.
Little curls made out of like satellite dishes in her hair, which look kind of cute, I guess.
So she wins that one, Miss Tallahassee, and then they have so I guess they have different winners for each competition, and the next one's the ugly face competition, and like Wacko is competing in this one, and he pretends to be a camel and spits on the host and gets disqualified, and Dot pretends to be a frog. She's doing really well, but the winner is this woman that can stretch her bottom lip over her top of her head or something. Which I guess that's Miss Missoula. Missoula. And then they had the stupid questions contest. And these are they're just dumb questions. There's not any actual answers to these, except for I guess this next one was fun. So the question was, what big pointy stone like barrier stands between the tip of Europe and Africa? And Kelly, do you know what the answer is?
The Rock of Gibraltar.
That's right.
Actually, you know what was funny is as soon as I was scrolling down and I read that, and I knew that's what it was gonna be. I mean, and I can't even claim to actually know, like, geographically speaking. I'm just like, I bet it's the Rock of Gibraltar, because that's just the first thing that popped into my mind. So,
well, the girl didn't get it right, but as a consultation prize, they dropped part of the Rock of Gibraltar on her head, so that was nice. And the winner was Dot, even though she didn't answer a question. But it's not how you play; it's how you don't play a game, I guess. And then they give out food to all the women, and they're so hungry they just haven't eaten in years or something. And they decide, hey, who cares about this competition? Let's go to Dairy Queen and eat some ice cream, and we'll just be friends. And then plot twist. Mr. Plotz comes in, and it turns out the Warners stole the invitation to be a judge, and he wants it back. So they're like, "Oh, okay, we'll put a sash on you and things." It turns out he's not going to be a judge, though. They're making him a contestant, and now the former beauty pageant contestants are the judges, and they're and now all the it's the Mr. Chairman of the Board beauty contest, so they have to walk around half naked and answer insane questions while millions stare at their butts, and that's basically the end of the comic, I guess.
Yeah, a little social commentary, I suppose, on flipping the tables and making the men dress up in scantily clad boxers, even though who would want to see these fat CEOs running around the place, but who knows? So yeah, there you go. There's our first story. of this. Now, let's go ahead and talk about some of the moments that wasn't. I don't really think there was any references to anything. At least nothing really stood out. I mean, there was that reference, I guess, with Rock of Gibraltar, which could have been a reference to the episode with Quiz Me Quick. What was that? It was called. Oh gosh, I always know the name of the game show, but not the episode. It's called Puppet. No, not Puppet Rulers. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, it's Quiz Me Quick.
Yeah.
Okay, we all know the one we're talking about. Anyway, so that was nice to see. But what were some of the moments that you thought were cool? Kelly, there was the Rock of Gibraltar part. I'm assuming you thought that part was cool. Was there anything else that you thought was?
That was my favorite part. I thought it was. I liked Dot's costume when she wore the curlers and bathrobe.
Yes,
she had the thing on her head, and it reminded me of one of Queen Amidala's headpieces.
It did look like the little headpiece that she had in her hair. It looked. I was thinking like 1920s or 30s, like weird ornamental headdress in her hair. But yeah, it does look like Queen Amidala. And this was before.
I went Star Wars with it.
Yeah, this is before Queen Amidala. So I'm guessing, George Lucas must have been subscribed to he does like comic books, we know. So I'm guessing that George Lucas subscribed to the Animaniacs comic book and saw that and said, I'm going to make that for the Queen, and put it right into
totally.
there. Yeah. So there you go. The origins of Queen Amidala are in this comic. I thought, I got to tell you, I kind of felt a mixture of, like, they were like commenting on the silliness.
I know what you're about to say.
Yeah, they're commenting on the silliness and stuff of beauty pageants, but at the same time, it kind of felt like, should they really be attacking these women and hitting them with mallets and stuff and making fun of their teeth and
I thought you were going to be talking about the whole thing about their food.
Oh, and the food thing too.
Yeah.
Like, I'm getting minerals from my lip gloss, and
yes,
I thought that was a little that panel in particular was a little over the top as far as beauty pageant.
Yeah, and then immediately they're fat, like in the next panel, basically. It's
so they're kind of So there was kind of like a commentary, like. Oh, we're going to have the men, like, how do you like it when people stare at your butts and comment on you? But at the same time, it was kind of, it didn't put women in the best light, I think, in this. So I really,
we know that it's a very competitive industry,
right?
And will go to great lengths, but it's not always healthy. And, I don't know. I just didn't think that was particularly funny, but maybe nowadays it's less funny than it would have been back then when this was written. But yeah, I didn't think it was all that funny.
Because it didn't seem like, because none of the women in this, again, I'm just thinking of like when they're like, it kind of upset me when they're just chasing them around with a mallet. Like, I'm going to hit them. Like, and I'm thinking to myself, these women are not like bad people. They're in a competition. Maybe this competition is stupid, but it's not it's not like they're being jerks to the Warners, like, get off the stage and all that stuff. I didn't see any reason for violence to be put onto these.
Yeah, it's not
women.
Morally wrong or anything.
Yeah, they're just doing it, and it might be, silly and stupid for them to be doing it, but it doesn't mean you have to hit them with a mallet, wacko. So that kind of made me step back, and I still liked certain parts like that, even though I didn't really I didn't like that she got hit by the Rock of Gibraltar, because I was like, what did she do? She was just, especially when they're trying to escape the mallet. Artistically though, I did like how the panel itself is crumbled and it looks cool, but I just don't like, I like it, but I don't like it.
Artistically, I like this comic a lot. Like when they do the ugly faces, I like all the ugly faces.
And it stretches the face, and the women are willing to.
Even in the first panel, when they're just all doing ugly faces of that, you see them sticking their tongue out and putting their jaw out. I don't know. And Dot looks really cool as a frog.
Yeah.
Oh, and Peeking the Brain are in that first panel at the very first panel of the comic.
Oh.
So I think artistically, there's lots of like little art things that are cool.
Oh, yeah, there's Pinky the Brain. They're the part of the reporters and at the paparazzi basically to take pictures of people as they come out of the things.
Take over the world.
Yeah, we must take over the world by posing as reporters. And wait a minute, not the best plan. That's why they didn't dedicate a story to it. Well, anyway. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the next story. The next story is Minerva Drama. And Minerva Drama was written by Dana Curtin. The penciler was Cosme Guittieri. Inker was Scott McCrae. The letterer was Teresa Davidson. And colorist was Joe Mignot. And Kelly, we all know that Minerva Mink is your favorite character. So...
Totally.
Can you please tell us what happens here in Minerva Drama?
Okay. Minerva's at her house and, kind of hanging out, singing to herself. And Newt, the dog, sees her and decides that he needs to get her for his master, whomever his master is. And so he tells her that he's going to foreclose on her house or he'll dynamite it. And she starts kind of flirting with him, and he obviously really likes her because everybody likes Minerva. And then he says, what say we blow this popsicle stand, babe? And, well, he's kind of like a horn, like a, what do you call it?
His nose turns
like
into his nose turns into like this whistle horn when she starts flirting. And then I think it's the nose that actually says, let's blow this popsicle stand. So,
and he's like, blow, get it? And I maybe it's just me. I was like, good night, everybody. and because then he's embarrassed and ends up blowing himself up with the dynamite. And then he tries to use reverse psychology, and he ties himself to a railroad track, like one of those old-timey stories, what is it, The Perils of Penelope or something like that.
Yeah.
And so he thinks maybe she'll come and rescue him. And she says that some men definitely do not deal well with rejection. And she leaves him, and she starts writing in her diary. And he gets run over by the train. And then he starts approaching her with some rope. And she's like, why you, dog, you? But rope chafes my skin. Got any handcuffs? And again, I say, good night, everybody.
Yeah, this part especially. I was like, whoa.
Because then she's laying there in a bikini, and I'm like, is this for kids?
And she's holding out her hands like, I'm waiting. And I'm just like, whoa.
So, and then he's like, stop that, behave yourselves, talking to his leg as his leg starts thumping like Thumper and the Bambi. And she says, you could have at least bought me dinner first. And then he ties her to a table. And she talks about how long it takes her to fix her hair. And she gets arm cramps because she blows her hair upside down and gets dizzy. And it's just like way too traumatic. And, she's like, I've been wearing this cute belt all day and you haven't said a thing about it. And so then he's going to untie her so he can admire it fully. And then she punches him. And it's like, that's one heck of a belt, all right. And then he all of a sudden decides that personality is more important than good looks. And I'm sorry, she says that.
Yes.
She says it, and she has a sudden hankering for short, sensitive types. But then she sees this other dude show up, and he's looking for a mink for his master, and she thinks he's totally attractive, and jumps into his arms, and then he takes her away, and Newt the dog says, I'll get you next time, little mink, foiled again. So I don't know who all these masters are that people are, I guess they're dogs, and so the dogs have a master. I don't know why their master would need a mink. There's so many questions.
Well, there was the original one, I think, where Rob Paulsen Hunter just kind of sets Newt out to go find the mink. and it almost felt like a kind of a sequel to that original.
Oh, okay.
Remember that? Yeah. So yeah, it's like Rob Paulsen voiced the hunter, and he just said, "Oh, go get me the mink." So he's just spent the entire time.
Oh no, you mean the cartoon? Not
Yes, exactly. Not in this one. So
it's Minerva. I didn't pay that much attention to Minerva.
exactly, kind of. Yeah. Well, anyway, there is some definite adult innuendo in this one for sure. Nathan, were there any moments in here that were of note for you?
Oh boy. It's all just Minerva mink.
It's kind of the same old, isn't it?
Right.
Good answer.
Doing reverse psychology, although he wasn't doing it very well.
He's like, please help me,
don't
mink.
Save me. Yeah.
Don't save me, and then she'll save. Again, the idea of how Newt was going to capture, he wanted to capture Minerva, right? So he's like, I'm going to capture her in different ways. Like, I'm going to pretend like I'm the guy, I'm the banker, and I'm going to blow up your house if you don't come with me. Or I'm going to, free me, and then I'll take you, I guess. I'll capture you after you free me. But then there's the whole part where he ties her up with rope and then puts her on a buzzsaw. Like, why are you doing that? Like, what was number one, you've caught Minerva. You've tied her. Aren't you supposed to be taking her to your master? But all of a sudden you want to, does it turn into, I'm going to chop you in half unless you like fall in love with me or something? I don't know what it was not structured very well to the point I didn't understand his motivation at times.
At the beginning, he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna get you," but then he's like, "Oh, she's too pretty to get, so I better trick her into getting her." Like what? Like what? What? Just it didn't make any sense. But yeah.
Well, all in all, I will say this: Newt was right on model. He looked really good. It felt, it looked like a Minerva cartoon. It was, It had that very strong adult innuendo especially with the handcuffs thing, where it was like, whoa.
There's no other way to take that one.
No, there is none. There's no other, that was very direct, like kids comic book. Hello. But yeah, let's just go ahead and move on. Let's go to No Substitute for Laughter. No Substitute for Laughter was written by David Cody Weiss. The penciler was Leonardo Batic. The inker was Scott McRae. What a stinker. Letterer was Bob Panaha, and the colorist was Dave Tanguay. And this is a Slappy Squirrel story. It starts off with Slappy, who's trying to make some food. I guess, Skippy's gone off to school. And so she's watching kind of a Julia Child kind of thing, except this is Julia Gibbon, and with the Gibbering Gourmet show. And she's in the middle of trying to reach and stir and fix things with her feet at the same time. And everything kind of crashes down. And she's like, I'm just going to make some walnut fritters or walnut salad, I should say. So she opens the cupboard, and there's Skippy. And poor Skippy's all sad. He's crying. And why? Well, because his substitute teacher, is mean and says that he's not a good student and stuff. And he says, I don't want to be a grade school dropout, Aunt Slappy. And she says, oh, come on, cut the waterworks. What makes you think the substitute hates you? And she says, I'm undisciplined and that I have too wild of an imagination. And that doesn't really bother Slappy, but what does bother Slappy is when Skippy says, she says you're a bad influence on me. And all of a sudden, that's what gets her really upset. But the shock is that this teacher, this substitute, she must be retired or something and coming back to sub. Because Slappy, that is, went to this same school that Skippy went to. And when they walk in the door, the substitute teacher, who must be very old at this point, turns out to be Slappy's teacher from when she was in school. And they kind of go off about how, this teacher doesn't have a sense of humor or anything, and that, Slappy never gave the right answers. Everything was a joke for her. Like, the capital of Wyoming was W. And, Slappy says a kind of obscure joke with, everyone knows the capital of Wyoming is $1.98, which I had to think for a moment and go, oh, capital like money. I get it now. Well, anyway.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. It took me a few moments. Like, what the heck is she talking about?
Between the three of us, one of us should get this, right?
Yes. Capital of Wyoming is, that was like, oh, money, like capital, right? That makes sense to you guys now?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not funny.
It's still not funny. And they proceed to like say, we're going to make this teacher laugh. So what ends up making this, they're trying to teach this teacher that, laughter is great. And so they try some jokes and it doesn't really work because the jokes aren't funny. And they eventually try kind of a joke where it's a little slapsticky, where they say, this is let's try visual aids. Think of algebra. It's like a patsy with pie plus banana peel, and the victim equals, and it's kind of like cake on her Slappy's head, and that makes the teacher laugh a little bit. And so they up the ante and they make it a bunch of cakes that fall all over Slappy, and that really makes the teacher laugh so much that she starts throwing pies at Slappy and says, this is so much fun. The end. So it's a kind of a short story, not much of a story to it. But it was drawn pretty well, I thought. It had some cute little moments, and Skippy's cute, and even when he's crying, it's kind of, you feel sorry for him. But, I don't know. Were there any moments in this that you thought were amusing or of note, I should say, at least? Kelly, let's start with you.
I thought it was cute when he said he didn't want to be a grade school dropout.
Nathan, what about you?
I guess, is that Julia Childs? Is that what's supposed to be on
like
the
a Julia
TV?
Child kind of, parody. Yeah. That's what I got.
Cooking and falls over. I don't know. There's nothing in this that it was.
Here's the thing where it says the Julia Gibbon thing. I actually had flashes to the Star Wars holiday special or Christmas special,
no.
because the Julia Gibbon or whatever it is says, okay, remember, one hand pours the milk while the other hand blends smoothly, and then the other left foot opened the door, and she's doing all this stuff, and it just reminds me of like that stupid sketch in the Star Wars holiday special where they're like whip stir, whip stir, or something like that. And you guys have any idea what I'm talking about?
I put that out of my mind completely.
Yeah. Stir, whip, stir. And like the person has 4 hands. And yeah. Never see the Star Wars holiday special unless you're watching it with Riff Tracks commentary, by the way.
Or alcohol.
Or a combination thereof.
Oh, that would be amazing.
So there you go. Anyway, there's it's short. I'll give it that. I wish it was a little funnier, obviously, because the jokes that they're doing are just not that great. But I thought it was drawn really well. I think I like how the teacher squirrel looks like she's taller and.
I thought she should have looked even older.
Yeah, she
doesn't look much older than Slappy, if older than Slappy at all. Like
maybe she was just a young teacher. Like maybe she was only like in her 20s. When she started teaching. That's possible. You could have a teacher in their 20s.
I guess I'd have to look at what how Slappy was describing her least favorite teacher, but I thought she was calling her old and.
Well, and that's the other thing too. It's like with cartoons. It's like who knows how they age and everything. It's just all mixed up, and the more you think about it, the more confused and upset you're going to get. So, I think before we get to our Water Tower rating, we should talk about some of the things that I really did like in this comic book, and that's actually the advertisements in this comic, because there were some things that, like right at the end, they have a commercial or cartoon for Virtual Boy.
Yep.
And
that's my favorite ad.
The favorite ad was Virtual Boy. Did either one of you ever get a chance to put your head into a Virtual Boy before they all disappeared? And
I did.
Yeah. I think Nathan and I used to do that. Like we used to have, after church, we go to the mall and we went to like Software Etc. or something like that. And they had one on
Sears or something.
Yeah. And they would have it. And so this is a new look for the third dimension. They're selling this game, the Virtual Boy, for just $99, which I'm assuming is discounted. And here's all the great retailers that you can go to. Let's see how many of these still exist today. Babbage's? Nope. Best Buy? Yes. Electronics Boutique? Nope. Fred Meyer? I don't know. Maybe.
I think they're still going out of business, but yeah.
Hills?
Still,
I've never heard of Hills. KB is gone. Meyer, Meijer. I've never heard of them.
They're in Michigan, I know.
Oh, Michigan? Okay. Nothing Beats the Whiz.
What?
I never heard of that. Sears, sort of still
Never
around.
heard of
They're pretty much done.
Software, etc. Gone. Target is still around. Toys R Us, gone.
It's gone.
No.
Yeah.
So we got 2, 3,
two or
maybe?
three are still around, and it's all the Virtual Boy's fault. It bankrupted everybody. But the other advertisement of note that I saw here was the Olympia Sales Club, where they were in all these different comic books for years. It says you can earn prizes or cash. And they were, these things where you basically sell magazines or candy, and then at incredibly inflated prices so that your neighbors never actually wanted to buy them. And then with the promise that you'd get awesome things like a Sega Genesis or a mountain bike or let's see, these are some rollerblades I see. Like, that looks pretty cool. Or a Chicago Bulls hat or a Virtual Boy. There's a Virtual Boy. Or a Goosebumps LCD game. There's like all these, sell 14 items. If you just sell 14 items, you can get a tent. That's wow. Or you sell 8 items, you can get a Looney Tunes doll. So it seemed like such a great deal. I did try this one time, and because I would always get the Archie comic books as a kid, and I think I sold 1 item. Because no one wanted to. I never got what I wanted. It was so sad. But do you guys remember any of these things? Any other advertisements stood out for you guys? Because those were the 2 that I saw, and I was like, "Ooh."
There was the one for Matilda.
Yes, the Matilda movie, which I read the book, and I never really got all the way through the movie. I like. I
haven't seen it either. I just was like, I remember when that movie came out.
Well, good advertisements, if anything. But let's go ahead and give this comic book a Water Tower rating. So, out of 5 Water Towers, how many would you give issue 17 of the Animaniacs comic book? Let's go ahead and start with you, Nathan.
Oh boy. Okay. I'll just give it like, I don't know, 2.5. I didn't find any of them really funny, but I did like art on all of them, so maybe I could go higher. I don't know. I always forget what I give the last one, but it's pretty.
You just
average.
have to go with your gut, I suppose.
It's not the worst comic I've read, but it's not the best one. So I'll 2.5. It's fine.
All right, Kelly. What about you?
I'm gonna go with 2. It wasn't really funny, and I don't like Minerva. So there's not a lot for me there other than Rock of Gibraltar.
Yeah. Well, I was about to give it 3, but yeah, it's just not as funny as it could have been. It looked great. There was a lot of stuff, but yeah, I'll give it 2.5. I'll round it down a little bit. Again, nothing horrible or anything, perfectly fine, but I wish it was a little bit funnier. Just a little bit. Well, anyway, let's go ahead and get to some contact information. Nathan, where can people get in contact with you online?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm on Twitter, Joey. Django FT, that's me.
And Kelly, what about you?
I'm on Twitter also, Yoda Princess, YODA, or you can find me an email, kelly@bigshinyrobot.com.
All right, and as for the Animanicast, we're on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And, of course, you can look at all of our previous episodes by simply subscribing to the Animanicast on your favorite podcast player. And, hey, you can also go to animanicast.com, and that will link you directly to our archives over at RetroZap. RetroZap.com is the place to go to for great articles on everything pop culture and tons of podcasts as well. In fact, if you subscribe to the RetroZap podcast feed, you can get every single one of those fantastic podcasts, including this one delivered straight to your device absolutely for free. So you should do it. And hey, discord.animanicast.com. That'll allow you to get a link right into the Retro Zap Discord channel, where you can talk about all things pop culture, including Animaniacs. So come on over there and we'll talk about stuff. Well, with that, let's go ahead and close things up. So for Nathan and Kelly, this is Joey saying, good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
This podcast is not endorsed by Warner Brothers or Amblin Entertainment and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Animaniacs, Tiny Toon Adventures, Freakazoid, the Warner Brothers logo, all names, pictures, and sounds are registered trademarks and or copyrights of their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of the Animanicast unless otherwise indicated. Today's show was brought to you by Audible.com. Go to audible.animanicast.com to pick up 2 free downloads. That's audible.animanicast.com.